Now. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Top of Off podcast. And today we are joined by, myself and Jacob are here as usual.
Hello.
And I suppose whoever is still listening, you're not sick of our voices yet, which is a good going. But we're joined by a very special guest, which is a friend of ours, Kevil. You want to say hi, Kev?
Hello to all your regular listeners.
Unfortunately, Jason Holder didn't respond when we tagged him, so we put Kevin in instead.
So we've got Kevin instead, basically.
We've got the next best thing.
So just before we start, yesterday in yesterday's episode, we had a few sound problems, and those sound problems are there's not much we can do about them, unfortunately, because they're to do with internet connections, and they're because we're broadcasting over Zoom and everything. And obviously, when we're all able to see each other in person again, then we'll have perfect sound quality. But short of programming our own version of Zoom or something, there's not much we can do. So let's start with our discussion today of day 3 of the first test between England and the West Indies. So we've got an overview of the day, and then we'll get into the stuff that we want to talk about. So here we go. So the day began with the West Indies continuing their first innings, batting at 57 for 1, chasing England's total of 204, on a much brighter and drier day than the first 2 days at Southampton, and on a pitch beginning to lose a little of its sharp bounce. The West Indies produced a batting display that was at times an exhibition of disciplined and restrained test batting, and at other times very aggressive and fast scoring, to make a total of 318 and establish a lead of 114 runs by the time their last wicket fell deep into the last session of the day. The fours was led by the contributions of Craig Brathwaite, Royston Chase and Shane Dowrich, who made scores of 65, 47 and 61 respectively. Notably, captain Jason Holder made only 5, before being caught by Jofra Archer off the bowling of Ben Stokes, and young bowler Alzari Joseph failed to convert a promising start, being bowled by Stokes on 18. England's bowling attack, which struggled to adapt to the changing pitch, toiled at times throughout the day, and questions will once again be raised about the exclusion of Stuart Broad, alongside the ongoing debate over the best way to utilise Jofra Archer's immense talents. The pick of the bowlers were Ben Stokes, who took 4 wickets for 49 runs, and Jimmy Anderson, who ended with figures of 3 for 62. Spinner Dom Best took 2 for 51, and Mark Wood 1 for 74. Jofra Archer remained wicketless. England, who began their second innings 40 minutes before the close of play today, begin day 4 on 15 for no loss and require a huge batting performance to save this match. So yeah, that is a pretty comprehensive overview of the events of the day.
And seems bleak, doesn't it?
It is. It's bleak reading, bleak listening for any England fans. Obviously, if you're a West Indian fan, then you're very happy with that. But just as we start, it's probably worth saying that Ben Stokes today took his 150th Test wicket, and he's also now scored over 4,000 Test runs. And only 5 other players have achieved this feat. So you've got Gary Sobers, Ian Botham, Kapil Dev, Jax Callis and Daniel Vittori. That is a pretty great class of player to be in, really. Those are some greats of the game. And Ben Stokes is, I suppose you can now see him statistically to be on par with these players. And so the question is, how deep does his influence run in this England side? And is it right to say that he's the single most important player for England right now?
I think it's a pretty fair shout, to be honest. He just today, the influence he had on the England side, if you remove him from the equation and just look at the strictly bowling attack, it makes a pretty grim reading. So I think he really is an influence. He took the side on his back today and, as usual, carried them to being still just about in the game. I mean, they realistically need to set the West Indies about 250 to chase to have a real chance. But he really worked hard for it today, and I think that shows, and his work rate and the success he's achieved is very much deserved, and to be amongst that very elite group of players. Interestingly, only Gary Sobers out of that list has done it faster than Stokes.
Yeah.
So he really is right up there in terms of some of the greatest all-rounders in history.
Yeah. Kev, have you got any thoughts on Ben Stokes?
Yeah, but I think every team, every good side has a star player of whom they're proud and who deliver the goods, really. And without that player, then in every team that has one, things tend to fall apart. He's the linchpin, I think.
Yeah.
And I think actually England are quite lucky in that they have in Joe Root another linchpin, because I think a lot of players feel a lot of loyalty to him.
Yeah.
And although, particularly over the last year, Root has felt a lot of pressure and he's not delivered as well as he has done in previous years, his record does rival Stokes's as well. So I think it's not quite as grim as it need be, and I think that the run chase could be easily set for the next couple of days. So it's not all bleak.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting what you say about Ben Stokes as a linchpin, because arguably we've seen this before as well. When he's removed from the England side, things do tend to fall apart. So the Ashes series in Australia 2 years ago, or almost 3 years ago now, actually, he was obviously not there, and there was a very big reason for that. And obviously it was an enforced absence from this England side. And there were a lot of reasons why England did very poorly in that series, but Ben Stokes not being there was a big part of that, and it was spoken a lot then. He is he's almost in the style of Ian Botham, and in the style of more recently Freddie Flintoff as well. He's that all-rounder who anchors both ends of the England team, and yeah, I think that definitely he's really important.
Of any team. So the challenge is, if you do remove him, to have someone to replace him.
Yeah.
If he gets injured, for example, or if something else takes him away from the team, then I think England are in a good place to start fostering some young blood.
Yeah.
I think Stokes is rightly put amongst the greatest all-rounders of all time in the reason that he does what only great all-rounders do. And Kev, you just mentioned if he's not there, replacing him. The problem is, because he does what an all-rounder does, you need two people to replace him. He makes such an impact on the batting and the bowling, as we've seen in this match. It was him and Butler who really held the West Indies bowling attack up yesterday and the day before, and yesterday primarily, I think, and kept England in the game. And it's him who's kept England in the game today with his 4 wickets for pretty much the lowest economy rate going, other than Bess, I think.
Yeah.
So he did seriously well.
I think your point, Kev, about Joe Root as well. I think we need to bring Joe Root in as well. Joe Root,
because he is captain after all.
He is, yeah. He's
overall
captain, and he's also coming back as well next week.
Yeah.
You know, looking forward from just this test, Joe Root will be, you know, the main source of leadership for this England side for the next 5 years. You know, at least I would say. And the thing with Root is that he's really influential as well. But Stokes has this quality. You know, Stokes. Joe Root inspires this loyalty, as you said, but Stokes has this quality, and he's attached to all these great moments for England. You know, Headingley last summer, he's attached to that, and he's attached, you know, to that 82 that he made in the World Cup final. He's really attached there, and I think this is a really important thing to mention. Is that Stokes just brings this star quality to the England team, which elevates them. Yeah.
I think it's important to remember, though, if you look at the Headingley test, obviously rightly Stokes gets all the plaudits for that.
Yeah.
But Root made 77 and stayed in overnight, and he really set that platform, which allowed Bairstow to come in and kind of G Stokes up and get him going.
Yeah,
So
that's very
Root's
true.
very influential, but I think Root is very good at kind of keeping a team in the game, and then B, taking a game away from the opposition. Whereas Stokes, I really think he's the one who turns the game. He's the match winner.
Yeah.
He takes it from one team and wrestles it back to the other team, and then Root, who has kept his team in, can then take it away from the other team once someone like Stokes has turned the tide.
Yeah, that's very
So
true.
they both have very important roles to play, and I think England are at their best when both of them are firing and together.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, continuing this talk about Ben Stokes, let's bring in the star of yesterday's show, which is Jason Holder. We need to talk again a little bit about the Stokes Holder battle, because yesterday it was very, it was very definitely Holder's day, and he won that battle yesterday. However, Stokes struck back today, and he took the wicket of Holder for 5, and that was a very important part of the West Indies innings as well, because before Holder foul, you had Holder and Joseph still there who could hold up for the bowling attack just a bit longer and allow them maybe to get a lead of 150 instead of 114. And as soon as Holder foul, that West Indian tail was exposed. And so I think that, has the battle between the two been evened out today? And has there been a shift in the balance of power between the two over the course of this match?
Well, a major factor to consider is, in terms of Stokes' personal performance today, I believe the highest 2 batting averages across the course of the last year in this match belong to Holder and Dowrich. Holder's averaging something like 42. Dowrich is the only one in the match, I believe, who scored more runs than him over the last year.
Yeah.
And Stokes took both of them. So I think that's what I was talking about with the match-winning stuff. He manufactures those big moments. Sam Curran's another one to a lesser extent who they talk about. He's just kind of got that golden arm, that knack of getting the wickets when you need them and producing something special. And Stokes takes that really to the extreme. In terms of the Holder-Stokes battle, it's got to feel nice for Ben Stokes today, surely. getting Holder out so cheaply.
Definitely.
And getting him swinging at a bouncer, and a very nice bouncer, actually. It started well outside off stump and jagged back in. Yeah, Stokes definitely won the engagement today, but I think Holder's still winning the war as it goes.
Yeah. I definitely think that's true, and I think that Holder played the shot that he did because the West Indies were in the position that they were when he was batting. If they'd been, if they weren't looking as good against England as they were at that point, I don't think he'd have played that shot. He would have played very defensively. But I think he had the license to strike out a bit, and obviously it didn't work this time. But the times it does work is spectacular. And so that I think that's one thing to say, is that Holder Holder played that shot because the West Indies were in such a commanding position, and had they not been, he would have played a bit more carefully, I think.
Should this circle back to Stuart Broad then, if we're talking about Stokes as being so valuable, Curran as being an up-and-coming young bowler, the same sort of metal, and also Jimmy Anderson, who I think was very powerful, very, very accurate today. Was Stuart Broad really necessary among giants like that?
I would say that Broad would have done well. I think these conditions were very much suited to him. Yesterday's conditions were very much suited to him as well. I think the main thing though is that you can't rely on Stuart Broad, much like you can't rely on Jimmy Anderson now, because they're both exceptional players and they're still really high quality. But they're both not going to be there in the long term. And if you want to build this England team for the long term, you have to take a risk and you have to take the punt on the younger players, because the only way they're going to get better is experience. The reason that Jimmy and Stuart Broad are so good is because they have those years of experience. And if you deprive the next generation of that experience, then really you're not putting the England team in a good place for the future. It may work out now, but the long-term investment won't be that good. What do you think?
We briefly lost Kevil for our listeners. Our viewers will have seen.
He's disappeared.
So he may be for a minute.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
he's back.
back. I think something interesting on the Stuart Broad question, and first of all, I agree with what you were saying. I stand by kind of what I said yesterday in terms of we need to get newer players through and people who are going to lead us over the next two Ashes cycles. In terms of Broad today, I think it's quite unfair to say about the current team that Broad needed to go in, and he did an interview with Sky this morning where he kind of expressed his frustration at not being in the team. But actually what we saw is, as the day went on, the pitch, the conditions really became a lot less suited to Stuart Broad. Yesterday they were far more suited to him. But the pitching conditions today, where actually most of the wickets fell, were more suited, because it was more of a batting pitch, a bit more of a road, were a lot more suited to Ben Stokes, which is why he was successful today. And even Anderson, you saw, realised now that we can't put saliva on the ball and stuff, there's a lot less swing. It's not moving around laterally.
Yeah.
He dragged his length back and started trying to challenge the outside edge and the pads off the seam, which is where a lot of his success came.
Yeah.
I feel that Archer and Wood were slightly hard done by, in that they toiled away yesterday, and we were all saying, pitch it fuller, pitch it up, get it up there. And then got about halfway through today, they started pitching it up. There was no movement. They were getting driven ball after ball with the second new ball. And then they had to pull their lengths back, and they just weren't given the opportunity because of just the times that they bowled, and also the confidence knock they had taken, particularly Jofra Archer yesterday. They weren't put in the best position. And so I think Broad would have been successful yesterday, but I doubt he would have been really as effective today.
Yeah.
And I think today was far more a day for someone who hits the pitch hard like Stokes, as we saw.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do think, though, that his interview that he did today was the right decision, because it shows that there is still that fire there. It shows that he still wants this. If he, the way he was dropped, it can be a lot about that. But the fact is, had he not been as angry as he showed he was by being dropped, even though he's at such a senior point in his career, it would have been very concerning, because you want your best batsman to have that fire. I've lost my train of thought. You want one of your best bowlers to have that fire and to have that passion. And if they don't have that, even at the age that they are, even at the point in their career that they are, it's concerning. And Michael Vaughan said something similar, and he tweeted something similar as well, that actually it's a good thing that Stuart Broad is speaking out, because what it shows is that he wants the England team, and what it shows is that there's a healthy competition for places. And it's better that he speaks out on interview than tweets like he did yesterday. I think the tweets that he made yesterday were a bit iffy.
Well, I'm not sure I agree, because he tweeted yesterday that actually Stokes had made the right decision, and he backed his captain. And I don't think we need him to come out in an interview and talk about how frustrated he is and how much he wants to be in the team. We know he wants to be in the team. He's Stuart Broad, for God's sake. Yeah. We know he's annoyed. We know he's frustrated. But what that sort of interview did today, and I have no doubt he ran it past the management and they thought it was fine. But talking about how angry he was not to be out there in conditions which would have suited him, I think it really undermines Stokes, and it undermines the guys out on the field, because the implication of it is it would have suited me better than them.
Yeah.
And I should have been in the team more than them. And he did say, they deserve to be out there.
Yeah.
But the underlying implication of it is they weren't suited to it. I was. And it leads to a lot of questions about Stokes and his decision making, and about the team. Archer, I saw on the BBC live feed today, Archer
Yeah.
was being questioned. Someone was saying, should we just use him in white ball cricket? The man, in 7 Test matches, he's got 3 5-footers.
Yeah, he's
Like,
spectacular. Yeah, and that actually leads on to the next point, and I really want to bring this up, which is that this question has been asked time and time again, and it was asked, how do you best use Archer? Because, you know, there's no denying he is an immense talent, and he's got so much potential to be one of the best Test bowlers we've ever seen. Yeah, he's really good, and he's something rare for England, which is a genuinely fast bowler. But he struggled today, and he struggled in the Ashes as well, you know, and obviously he didn't play much over the winter. So Kev, how would you best use Archer? This is a question that has to be answered, and it has to be addressed.
Well, look, I think Stuart Broad has got very comfortable in the England team, and him not being selected is not only a sign of his own frustration, but also that to some extent he felt entitled to a place.
Yeah.
In life because of the extent of time that he's been playing and the significant successes that he's brought to the team. However, Archer is, I think, a more effective fast bowler, a more effective seam bowler too. And he brings a new dynamic to the team, a more aggressive dynamic than Stuart Broad, who, in his comfort zone in the England team, doesn't always deliver, especially in recent years, or recent months more. And I think it's right to play Archer as much as possible, but not to make him feel too comfortable in the same way that Stuart Broad did. But also make his bowling more aggressive than it is, because I was looking at some tweets today and they're saying he's bowling mid to low 80 mile an hour when his potential is 90s.
Yeah.
And I think pushing him to that limit should be the aim of the England trainers and the rest of the England team.
Yeah, Jacob?
In my opinion, Stokes used Archer and all of his bowlers really well today. He did not bowl anyone too long. In fact, I'd argue he possibly could have bowled Dom Bess a bit longer in his first spell after he picked up that first wicket. But other than that, you can't really fault how he rotated his bowlers, and they basically all bowled the same number of overs. Jeffrey wasn't over bowled. It was great to see. He wasn't bowling 42 overs in an innings. I think the first thing that we're going to have to accept with Archer is, obviously he's a phenomenal talent, but being a Barbadian-born fast bowler and properly fast bowler, we're going to have to accept he's probably not entirely suited optimally to English conditions. A pitch like we saw today at the Ageas Bowl is not going to help him specifically, and it also didn't help Mark Wood. Somewhere like Old Trafford, where there's more pace in the pitch, will be helpful. But what we have to remember is, while, say, Mark Wood today was bowling 95 miles an hour, the pitch was slow. It held up in the pitch, and it didn't hurry the batsman as much as it does places like Old Trafford and abroad. So I think Archer is definitely going to be a cornerstone of tours around the world, especially to Australia, obviously. Because if he can keep those speeds up, and my theory on today with his speeds being down, I think he slowed down deliberately. I think the lower pace was what was doing it today, and he thought he'd give it a try. And then he kept a few quicker ones for the bouncers and so on. But if you can keep his pace up, definitely he's going to be fantastic when he can hurry the batsmen and make them uncomfortable. It's that which we need from him.
Yeah,
in England,
that's very true.
In England, one thing I'd like to ask here is it's a more general question. Is the West Indian team have focused all of their efforts and all of their attack on their bowling attack? England have good bowlers. They have some decent batsmen who aren't delivering. Dom Sibley, for example.
Yeah.
So they're just sort of averaging out at average, and that's what they did against Australia.
Yeah.
When all the hype was about bringing in Jofra Archer as this Harold Larwood figure who would eliminate Steve Smith in the same way that Harold Larwood eliminated, well, bodylined Don Bradman.
Yeah.
So the problem, I think, and again, this is a sort of general question, is that England are fundamentally an average team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's very possible, but the issue is we're not seeing each of these individual players at their best, and it just is very unfortunate that quite a lot of them have had a relatively small dip in form around the same time. So we are averaging out at average. But if you get an England team where once Root comes back in, when he's firing a bit more, because he did better in New Zealand, but he struggled across the summer a little bit. When he's firing more, when Stokes is back to that top of his game that we know he can be, and when people like Archer are really up there, then I think you have the nucleus of what can be a really great team. It just needs some direction. And as I was saying, I think the English conditions obviously don't favour really fast bowling, which is why we don't produce a lot of them. I think in England you need, yes, to use more people like Chris Wokes and Sam Curran. Obviously, Sam Curran couldn't be a part of this Test match because of illness. But I actually think Chris Wokes being left out is a more egregious leave than Stuart Broad because of his fantastic record in England, and he bowls his best in England.
Yeah, that's very true. I think another thing to say is that this England team, you have to remember, is fundamentally a very young team.
It is. But how far can we use average performances due to age?
Yeah, I do see what you mean, but at the same time, I also think that maybe experience, especially with the bowlers, maybe a lot of that sort of tactical knowledge, that sort of instinctive sort of knowledge of where to put the ball and what to do with the ball, the more experience they get. And this is a fundamentally very inexperienced side, except the exceptions are Stokes really, and obviously Jimmy. Other than that, this England team, a lot of them are still at the start of their careers or still in the early stages of their careers, and this is something I think maybe we have to think about as well.
If I was a selector, the way
Ollie Pope in the last test. Oh, go on. Sorry.
If I was a selector, the way I'd be looking at it would be kind of adopting a bit of an either-or policy. So take one of Broad or Jimmy, take one of Wood or Archer, take one of Wokes or Curran in England, and a spinner. And then obviously abroad you can take one of Broad and Jimmy and then two pacers and a spinner or whatever you want to do. But I think that's possibly an interesting way to do it, because then you get this kind of, you get the Broad Jimmy factor, you get some searing pace, you get suited to English conditions, and you get someone like Dom Bess, who bowled fantastically today, by the way. But I think that might be a way to kind of, rest the bowlers enough, so especially someone injury prone as Mark Wood isn't working back-to-back Test matches, and also to get a bit of everything which you need. Yeah,
that's very true. I think we need to move on. We spent a lot of time talking about England's fast bowlers. Let's just briefly, before we look at the West Indies, let's briefly talk about Dom Bess. His performance today was pretty good. And what does his performance today say about the state of that battle within the England setup for the spin position? And also, what does it say more specifically about our favourite man, Amar Verdi, and his prospects?
Who we must now tag in all the Facebook posts.
We must. We'll get him on here as well.
The thing I loved about Dom Bess today is that more than any of the England bowlers, while not the most successful in terms of wickets or economy rate, more than any of them, he bowled with excellent control. And that's what you want to see for a spinner. His manipulation of the ball, both in the air and off the pitch, given what the pitch gave him, which was not a lot, was exceptional. He challenged both edges. He varied his length and pace very nicely. And ultimately, we saw that in the case of the 2 wickets he took. The first one, Shea Hope, which was a very nice ball, just going on with the arm, which Hope had a swipe at. And the second one was Blackwood, I believe, who Best just kept him boxed in to the extent that he got so frustrated, he marched down the pitch and smacked one straight to Jimmy Anderson. So I think the control that Best provided, not necessarily of the scoreboard, but of the ball, and how he made the batsmen on a day which was really for them feel under pressure, I think really stood out.
It was definitely very good. And I think the key thing to look at his performance was just how aggressive he was with his bowling. His lines were very aggressive. You know, the way that he, as you said, boxed in players like Blackwood was brilliant, you know, and it wasn't, you know, waiting for batsmen to, you know, waiting for that magical ball, you know. It was actually proactively bowling aggressively and making these batsmen make a mistake, because he realized that, you know, he could leak so many runs before he got that, you know, really magical ball. So instead, why not box these batsmen in, play aggressively, and force them to make a mistake? You know, frustrate them to the extent that they make a mistake, or, you know, to the extent that they think, oh well, I've picked up what he's doing now, I've picked up these balls, and then, you know, obviously they haven't, and they make that mistake and they miscue something. And so I think that was a really good exhibition of aggressive spin bowling today. It was really good. Kev?
I have very little to add about Dom Bess, actually, because we've seen very little of him play for England. I don't know his record at Somerset, but it's very good.
Yeah.
The Somerset team on the whole are very strong, and they delivered Ollie Pope and Sam Curran as well.
Somerset are really good for developing their spin bowlers as well.
So,
you know, it's a really good place. For, you know,
well, Leach is Somerset as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So, just picking up.
So they call Somerset Hyderabad, actually. It's brilliant. Yeah, that's a nickname.
That's a great nickname.
Just picking up on your point, Pav, about making the batsman make a mistake.
Yeah.
I felt that's of the pick of the England bowlers today were obviously Stokes and Best. And I think that's what they did the best, is that if you look at most of Stokes' wickets and all of Best's, it was not about maybe as much as Anderson. And Anderson can get away with it because he can produce these fantastic deliveries almost on demand.
Yeah.
But Anderson his wickets were, the batsman got done by a good ball. Whereas I feel Stokes and Best really made the batsman make a mistake. They unsettled them to the point where they did something wrong. And that's a really important factor to have.
Yeah.
But Amar Virdi, to move to our favourite man.
Yeah.
I think he'll get a shout in the third test, hopefully. I think he might leapfrog Leach, because we've seen what Leach can do, and he's a very capable bowler.
Yeah.
I think if we can get ahead in the series, we might give Virdi a shout just to see how he goes and give him some experience.
I do hope so.
Don Bess as well batted fantastically yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
And he batted exceptionally.
He really, I think Bess's batting performance yesterday, we didn't really cover it yesterday, but his performance was really the difference. It could prove the difference, I think, in terms of the fact that instead of making below 200, you know, we finished on a score that was above 200. And obviously it was still a very poor score, but you know, that difference of 30 runs could be very important over the course of this match.
My prediction for today, which of course, given all my predictions thus far, will be wrong, but I think Bess will have a very important part to play, particularly on day 5, because I think if the Windies if we can set the Windies over 200, 250 to to chase on the assumption that this track deteriorates as we think it will. Best might be the man on day 5 to really dig in and get England on top.
Yeah, that's very true.
I disagree. Actually, I think it will be. I think it will be Ollie Pope who will deliver the goods on. Well, possibly not on day 5, but tomorrow, if the top order don't do as well.
Yeah.
And I think Ollie Pope will have to be the muscle who delivers the runs.
Yeah.
Which I think is the typical narrative of England batsmen now, that Sibley just won't do as well. Stokes and Buckler, well, that was a good partnership yesterday.
Yeah.
But it got off to a shaky start, and it wasn't strong. It didn't last, and I'm not sure they gel very well in test conditions.
Yeah, that's very true.
One day, I think it's a different story, but in test conditions, they have to work at their partnership. And then in comes Ollie Pope, and for the last couple of test tours, he's been the one that, well, is made in the century, for example.
Yeah.
I think he's the hope.
He's a very organised player, very reminiscent of Ian Bell. And I think the partnership between him
they call him Baby Bell.
Yeah, they do.
The partnership between him and Stokes is one that can really carry a game away. They can put on runs together, and if it was a
him and Stokes or him and Butler, that partnership, I think that will prove crucial to England's innings is those two partnerships.
Yeah.
Let's flip now and move to the West Indies batting performance today, because it was a very solid batting performance. What do we think about how they batted? The West Indies known for their quite aggressive one-day orientated style, but they really reined it in today. So what do we think about how they did?
I think that they batted really well, and they went a long way to prove wrong a lot of the doubters that they had before this series, because there were a lot of people before this series who said that the West Indies batting lineup is going to be the weakness. And people said they can bowl, but they can't bat. And well, they've proven them wrong. And it wasn't a vintage performance. It wasn't 400, 450, but on this surface, and with the conditions that they had, it was pretty good. It was a really respectable performance, and it put England's innings into contest. And it said, it showed that, that England, it wasn't just the conditions that tripped England up. England did underperform because the West Indies played on the same pitch, and it was a pitch that was losing a bit more of its bounce, but they still played on largely the same pitch, and they made a very good job of it, and I think a shout out has to go to Brathwaite and Darridge, because they played spectacularly, to make half centuries and to get into the 60s on a pitch like that was really good.
Absolutely. Definitely Brathwaite needs to be applauded for staying out there so long, and someone as well was Ruston Chase. He only got 47, but he stayed out there for near on 4 hours. And to get in and stay in on a pitch like that, we said yesterday it's never going to be a 400 plus pitch, but it is a 300 plus pitch for a damn good team, and the West Indies, they were a damn good team. And we really had to fight back hard on the back of the massive lion tattooed back of Benedict Stokes, Benjamin Stokes even, to really get back in there. So all fair play to the West Indies, I think.
Yeah. Kev, any thoughts on the West Indies?
Well, I think where the margin will come down is when the pressure is applied after the run chase is set by England.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we'll see the sort of fireworks that we're used to from West Indian batting.
Yeah, that's very true.
Again, as you say, the pitch won't allow too many fireworks, but I think we'll get some really great moments when the pressure is applied after England set the run chase. And depending on how or where England set the run chase, I think will determine what we see from West Indian batters.
Yeah.
So something that's very interesting about the way the West Indies played today is they, as I said, they have been known as a kind of quite white ball orientated side, and a lot of the time that's influenced their test batting quite well. And a lot of guys have moved from the one-day squad into the test team. But today it was a really old school lot of test batting. It's almost a surprise now when you see a West Indies test innings and there's not a six in it. But there was, I think, 25 or so fours. But they really dug in, and it was a test innings. It was,
it really was.
Especially from Brathwaite, Chase, and Dowrich.
And I think the key thing with Brathwaite and Dowrich, we mentioned before, but the key thing is that they both were out there for more than 100. They faced more than 100 balls, and that says a lot about this West Indian team. That yes, there were some moments where there was acceleration, and there was some moments where we saw that sort of flash of this Indian short form success and what's made it so good. But a lot of the other time, it was a really restrained, really disciplined test innings. And actually, I'd say it's something that England can learn from.
I'd say so too, yeah.
Yeah. And that's a question that I want to ask, actually, is the aggressive and fast style that they use, to great success in their short form games. Has that influenced their test game in a good way?
The West Indies or England?
The West Indies.
Well, as I said, it was interesting today in quite a unique case that you couldn't really see the influence that their aggressive one-day style had brought to bear. I think, interestingly, the one kind of standout in one-day cricket I can think of, other than Holder, obviously, in the batting lineup today, is Shea Hope, and he didn't do all that well.
Yeah.
And Holder actually didn't do that well. So the guys who were aggressively taking it on, Blackwood as well, who is an aggressive test player, he got out quickly. This wasn't a pitch for fireworks, and I think oddly they showed a lot of restraint and a lot of good test batting, and that was something that they've needed for a while, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
For definite.
So
Jeffrey Boycott will be sitting at home very pleased.
But to answer your question, it's not influenced it at all, it seems, neither in a good or bad way.
Yeah. But I mean, for a number of years though, you had that short form focus of the game, and we spoke about this yesterday. The financial realities of cricket in the West Indies, and the reasons behind why West Indian batsmen and West Indian players focus more on the short form. But at the same time, for a number of years, it influenced the test team very negatively, and it seems the same thing that England's one-day success has done upon their test team. But yeah, I think I would agree with you in saying that what they've done now is to come out from the shadow of the short form games and the short form teams, and really think about how to apply and how to really bat a really decent test innings.
Yeah, I would completely agree there.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else to add, Jen?
I think, you know what, I think we've actually spoken about everything that we wanted to cover. Yeah, that's it. That's genuinely it.
Kev, you're relatively new to the podcast. I don't know how much you've listened to it. It was only 3 episodes, but at the end of each, we choose a star player from each team, a moment of the day, and then one word to describe the day.
Wait, hang on. Star player from each team.
Yeah.
Star player from each team, moment of the day, one moment, and one word to describe the day.
One word. Okay. I'll start with the moment because that's the one that came to mind first. I think Jimmy Anderson's catch today was very accomplished. It was not what I expected. I thought it was a very good bit of cricket, really. It's that whole scenario and Jimmy Anderson being in the right place, good catch.
Yeah.
That's what stuck with me today. Star player from each team. Hope, probably, from the West Indian side.
Yeah.
Who, sorry?
Hope, Shane Hope.
Shea Hope, okay.
Interesting selection.
Yeah, interesting choice. Got out for, was it 13 or early 20s on Donbass?
It was something
Yeah,
like that.
but I mean, there were a few good. And from the England, Stokes, naturally, I think, from the England side.
Yeah.
And what was that one word?
One word, yeah. Take your time.
Sorry.
This air your experience.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Sponsored by Kevel.
Restrained, I think.
Restrained, yeah.
Have?
Definitely. So my star player from the West Indies, I would say was Brathwaite today, because he showed what a test opener should do, and he did it very well. From the English side, I'd have to go with Stokes as well, same as yesterday. Star wicket taker, he did very well. So I would say Ben Stokes. My moment of the day was when Stokes took the wicket of Holder, because that really was a difference between the West Indian lead of 114 and a possible lead of 150 plus. So I would say that was my key moment. One word to describe the day. I'm going to go along the lines of Kevil's and say restrained. Yeah, it was a very sensible day from the West Indies.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to cheat slightly on two of these categories. So in terms of the star player from the West Indies, my first cheat is I'm gonna definitely make an honourable mention of Craig Brathwaite. I think he, as you say, did exactly what test openers were meant to. Really great innings from him on a tricky pitch, both late yesterday and throughout today. My West Indian star player for the day actually is Shamar Brooks.
Okay.
Who, having only played 4 tests thus far, I think has a 50 and 100 to his name, and he only got 34 or something today, but he made it look very comfortable out there. And a man on 4 tests, fewer than Joe Denley, who looked quite weak the other day, looking comfortable against Jimmy Anderson, the greatest fast bowler of all time, undisputably. I think that really stood out for me.
Yeah.
Star player from England. I want to say Stokes, because obviously he did such a great shift, but my heart is with Dom Bess, because of just the way he bowled and how nice it was to see a proper English spinner bowling well on a pitch even that wasn't offering much.
A bit of an underdog as well.
Yeah. Moment of the day. Again, it's hard to choose. Again, I'm going to cheat. Honourable mention of Dom Bess's wicket of Shea Hope, because it was such a nice ball. But I don't think I can disagree with Pav, and it's got to be Stokes getting Holder's wicket.
Yeah.
That, first of all, is such a nice victory for Stokes. And secondly, as you say, Pav, getting someone like Holder out cheaply is very influential in the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Possibly the defining moment of the day in terms of saving the game for England.
I think it was one of the few things during the day that went undisputably in England's favour. I think definitely, it was a real flash of hope for England during the day.
And then one word to describe the day, just to finish off. Balanced. I think balanced. Because both the day and the game now balanced.
It was very. It was a very Gary balanced day.
Not a day for Gary Balance. Don't let him. Don't put him back in, please.
Okay. So before we finish, the BBC today was doing a sort of recurring thing through the day, and I think it was inspired by a Twitter thread that was put up in the morning about different as club cricketers. So I don't know if you guys saw this today. So it was saying, it was describing them as club cricketers. So like Kane Williamson, it says was.
Yes, I did.
You saw it. Yeah. It was really good fun. So I was thinking, actually, let's twist it around and let's say, if you were an international cricketer, based on how you play, who would you be?
Oh my God.
What we're going to see now is whose ego is the biggest, basically.
I think I'll give it this: the bowling style of Alistair Cook and the batting style of Mitchell Johnson. I wish they were reversed, but I think those are the two I'll give you.
Go on, Kev.
Cook's one test wicket, I think, is perhaps my favourite Cook moment.
I'll have you know that the medium pace dolly down the leg side is my team entirely.
Who would you say you are, Kev?
Oh God. Oh, I think I really couldn't tell you.
It's not the point of the game, Kev.
It's too much.
We'll circle back round. Pam?
Yeah, come back to me.
Yeah, we'll come back to you, Kev.
Yeah.
I would say.
Don't you dare say Shane.
I would say Monty's batting. Yeah. Amarvirdi's beard. I would say Monty's batting, Amarvirdi's beard, and I'd like to say someone like Mitchell Stark's fast bowling, but it's not. It's definitely not. Mine is more sort of.
Your work rate in fielding is pretty close to Monty as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of drop catches that happen. Yeah.
Are you just Monty?
Yeah, I am. I'm Monty in disguise. Monty Panesar has been
it's not a very
hosting
good
this podcast. It's sort of hiding in plain sight, really. I do actually have an uncle who looks a lot like Monty, and it happens less nowadays. But back in back about 10 years ago when Monty was playing and was a lot more well known, he would be constantly constantly mistaken for Monty, and he'd be asked for autographs and stuff, and he got really used to just looking at people and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm not Monty," and they just look at him like, "Yeah, but are you?" And once he actually, because they're both from around the same place, they're both from Bedford and that area. Once he actually saw Monty on a train, and he said it was the weirdest experience in his life because he just they looked exactly like each other. But, yeah.
Did he say hi?
I think so. Yeah, I think he said hello.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah,
Final chance. Who are you? Professional cricketer?
Go on, Kev.
Look, I think my bowling is so hopeless that I'm not even going to bother with bowling at the moment. So, and that narrows it down a bit. So then I think I'm going to go with Adam Hose. I think I'm in a team that is not as good as to have Adam Hose in it. I think I would be the Adam Hose of the team that is not quite as good. If you see what I mean, it's
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
I'm the Pajara of the second team of my club. 0 off 500 balls in a 50 over game.
Yep. Yeah, mine is I sort of get fed up of playing defensively, and this is not a problem that is just restricted to
The England batting lineup.
No, it's not a problem that is just restricted to playing in real life. Because when we play on the video games as well, when we play on the PlayStation, I always start with I'm gonna bat for time. Oh, that's it. I'm gonna make a really big innings, restrained, confident, and then it's like you get to about 5 overs in, and you're like, forget this. Smack if you didn't get caught.
At over number 7, the run rate is suddenly 12, and he's 5 down. Yeah. Okay. Well, that fantastic, guys. That was very nice. So, yes, please tweet us with who you would be as a professional cricketer at hashtag #TOOPod. Nobody tweeted us last time. It was very sad.
It was.
Tweet us, and we will read out your answers on the show for you and 5 other people to then listen to. Possibly Jason Holder as well. So please.
It's not like they've got anything else to do.
No. Please tweet us.
Anyway.
Please tweet in and say who you would be as an international cricketer. And it doesn't matter who. Just give us a reason why.
Yes.
That's amazing. But yeah, that is all from us today. So we will see you tomorrow. For day 4 and our overview of day 4, and let's see just how bad England's position is then.
Let's have some hope.
Yeah, we'll have some hope. Yeah, we'll have a little bit of hope.
Yes.
But let's see what happens. And thank you for listening to us. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thanks to Kevil for coming on. I'm sure we'll be on a lot more as well.
Thanks, Kev. And you're welcome back whenever.
The Pakistan series as well. We've got plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and we should have a few other people coming on in the next few weeks.
Jason, we've already got Jason Holder's booked. Monty's booked. Everyone's booked.
Everyone's.
We'll be tagging Amar Virdi heavily now. So
yeah.
Okay.
So let's see what happens.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, and thanks for listening, guys. And we will see you tomorrow.